Hello, hello, hello there. Hi, everyone. Welcome back to the channel. If you are new, thanks so much for watching. Don't forget to hit the like and subscribe button and the notification bell. So today, I'm going to be showing you how to make plantain tacos with blackened Suya shrimp. I know, it's a mouthful, but it's totally worth it. Let's jump right into the process. So the first thing you're going to do is prep your plantains. You're just going to chop them up. You can keep the skin on. It's easier to remove anyway once you've boiled them. While those are boiling, you're going to boil those for about 15 minutes, I would say. It depends how ripe they are, but you don't want to get overly ripe plantains. Get your shrimp defrosting if they're frozen. Then you can go ahead and prep some of your toppings. So I started off with the tomatoes and onions and cilantro. So you can finely dice those, mix them in the bowl, and go ahead and add some olive oil or whatever your oil of preference is when it comes to salads and vegetables that help as a sort of cooling agents, because the flavors in this dish, particularly because of the suya, are very bold. So you want something to help cool the tongue. You can also add cucumber if you like, but I decided to stick with tomato and onion, mainly because when suya, which is, if you don't know, it's used as a term to describe street food in Nigeria in particular, but just West Africa in general. And this is basically skewered steak or beef, but other types of meat as well. But it also refers to the seasoning or the spice. And when they serve it, they typically will serve it with some onion and tomato on the side. So for the purposes of these tacos, I thought it made sense to kind of put them together. And it works out, of course, because if you eat tacos, you know that pico de gallo is a popular combination of tomato and onion as well, also with some cilantro in the mix. So this came together pretty well. So at this point, your plantains would probably be ready. You can check just by using a paring knife. It should come out easily when you stick it in. And then you can remove the skins and set the plantains aside to cool before you continue making the tortillas. Now, I mentioned suya pepper, suya spice, suya seasoning. It goes by multiple different names. Just quick heads up, this stuff is really spicy. Just take a look at the ingredients. I really like this brand. You can get it on Amazon. Just click the link in the description box or on my website, and you can order it from my Amazon store. But just in preparation for the shrimp, you're going to put the suya on a plate, because you're going to use that to coat your shrimp to make sure every inch of the shrimp is covered in spice. Now, turning your attention back to the plantains, once they've cooled down, you're going to actually put them in a food processor and blend them until the plantains form a bowl. When you've chopped them up, you can also kind of stop it and add your seasoning, some salt, and then optionally you could put some garlic and onion powder, which is what I did because I believe everything should have some flavor. Once you've done that, you can put the lid back on and continue the process until a bowl forms, like I mentioned. Don't get concerned if you see it still kind of as crumbs. Don't worry, it's gonna shape up. Just give it a little bit of time and you'll have your bowl. You're gonna use that to make your tortillas. You can actually do this with other things like sweet potatoes and whatnot. So you don't always have to get store-bought tortillas. And I don't know about you, but there's just something satisfying about making your own tortillas at home. Okay, so now you're going to dust a surface with your cornmeal. You can use a large cutting board or whatever clean surface you have in your kitchen, and place the bowl on top because you obviously don't want it to stick. Try not to leave your plantains out for too long because you don't want the, I guess, quote unquote dough to dry out, because it'll make it a little bit more tricky for you to get it into the consistency that you need to get it into. So you're gonna gradually add the cornmeal and knead it in to the plantains because you want everything to mix together. I wouldn't pour the entire portion of the cornmeal in. You want to take your time with this a little bit. And if you've handled dough before, it'll probably be a little bit easier. If not, don't worry, just kind of watch what I'm doing here. If you feel like the dough is a bit dry, especially if you do end up leaving the plantains out before you get to this part, you can add a little bit of cold water, very small amounts, because you also don't want the dough to be too wet either. The goal is when you're now cooking them is for them not to fall apart, either because they're too wet and sticky or because they're too dry. So again, just kind of take your time, and what you want is for the dough to stand firm on its own from the starches in the plantains, the natural starches in the plantains, but also from the cornmeal as well. Now, once you've gotten it together, you're going to take, depending on the size of the tortillas you want, I usually make mine kind of a street size, taco size, so about 4.5 inches. So 2 to 3 tablespoons, it's up to you. And you're gonna take those from the large bowl of dough and roll it into a smaller one. Then you're gonna use some cling film as a barrier for the rolling pin so it doesn't stick, and you're gonna roll it out. You can use, there's all types of utensils that you can use if you want a perfectly round tortilla. I don't mind as much because I'm gonna eat them anyway, so. But you just basically roll it outwards. See what I'm doing here from the center, and you just kind of keep doing that all the way around to form a circle. You want it thin, but not too thin, because you don't want it to break apart when you lift it up, and then also when you're cooking it. You can just feel it and keep doing it until you're satisfied with the thickness. I wouldn't recommend making them too thick either, because that'll ruin your eating experience. When you remove the cling film, just be careful because you don't want to tear the whole tortilla apart. Also, take care when you're taking it off of the surface. This is why you want to flour the surface. But you don't want to flour it too much because then it becomes a whole floury mess. Now you're going to repeat that until you're done. This recipe makes about 6, so you can just increase the portions if you want more. Then you're going to heat a skillet to about medium heat and add some oil. I used some avocado oil here because it has a high smoky point. And you're just going to baste the oil around and go ahead and start adding your tortillas. And you're going to cook them on each side for about 3 minutes or so, but you can just keep checking it until it's the color that you want it to be. You can do them one by one or 2 at a time. It just depends on how much time you have and the size of your pan or skillet. I think this one was one of my favorite ones. It came out really nicely, don't you think? Anyway, these are really pretty. I like making my own plantain tortillas, and I hope you do as well after this. So next up is cooking the shrimp. Now, once you've washed and dried and deveined your shrimp, you can keep the tail on. I've talked about this before in a previous video when I was making shrimp Alfredo. Keeping the tail on helps with flavor and helps to avoid shrinking the shrimp. And then you can just peel the tail off later. But if you don't want to do that, then feel free to take the tail off. Anyway, what you want to do, like I mentioned earlier, is cover the entire surface of the shrimps with a fairly thick coat of the suya, because this is how you're going to get that kind of charred, blackened effect and really pack a flavor punch. You can see here that the suya is just such a great versatile spice, and just the detail here, you can see there's a lot of spices in there, which is what makes it so wonderful. And just make sure you dust off anything residual. Once you're done, you can get to pan searing your shrimp. So I would recommend you change pans here because it's the same pan you're going to use to make your sauce. So go ahead and do this in batches and cook the shrimp for 2 to 3 minutes per side. And just a warning here, another heads up. Suya, because it's extremely spicy. If you have poor ventilation, or in my case I was cooking over an induction stove just to make the demonstration easier for you all to see, it's going to be releasing that as it cooks, the heat. So you might start spluttering and coughing. Don't say that I didn't warn you. Please be careful. It's super intense. You can also optionally add a little bit of butter just to add a little bit more flavor. You can use regular butter or you can use clarified butter. That's probably the better option. I didn't have any clarified butter at this point, so I just threw in some regular butter. And you can just use that to quickly coat the shrimp before you take it out of the pan. So the last thing you're going to do before you assemble your tacos is make the sauce. You're going to use the same pan that you use to cook the shrimp, because you want to deglaze it with the soy sauce to get all those flavors, especially the suya, into the sauce. Then you're going to add your cornstarch, which is going to help thicken the sauce, along with the peanut butter and some lime juice. You're going to give that a good stir to make sure you get all the flavors, everything that's stuck on that pan. You want that in your sauce. That's not a waste, that is flavor. Don't worry if there's tiny little burnt bits, it's all going to come together nicely. You can then add your seasonings. I added some paprika and black pepper. You can add anything else you want. And then you can add the water. Do that gradually and just continue to stir until you have a smooth sauce. You can make adjustments depending on how thick you prefer your taco sauce. You also might notice that I used a little bit less than what's indicated in the recipe. That's only because I didn't need as much sauce for the demonstration. So now you can put your tacos together. This part is all up to you and dependent on your preferences. I like to first start by placing some sauce on my tortilla. And then at that point, I like to add the proteins. I think tacos should have, especially when you're using jumbo shrimp, about 3. That's usually enough, in my opinion. Then you can go ahead and add your onion and tomato. Make sure to season that with some salt and pepper, by the way, and just keep that in the fridge. And then you can put any other additional toppings like some avocado, feta, and cilantro, and voila, the final dish. I really hope you enjoy these as much as I did.
This is it right here.
Super, super delicious, packed with flavor, perfect balance of heat, some sweetness. You've got the texture, and it's gluten-free. Thanks so much for watching. You'll see some recommended videos on the screen, and I'll see you in the next one.